In the last video, I took a close look at the Boston area, as well as around the Hingham area and Scituate, Massachusetts, before exiting the United States at a place called Egypt Beach, near Scituate. My name is Michelle Gibson. The circle alignment enters Nova Scotia at Cape Sable Island, locally referred to as Cape Island, and is the southernmost point of the Nova Scotia Peninsula. Historically, the Argyll district in Nova Scotia was referred to as Cape Sable, and encompassed a much larger area than Cape Sable Island. The Argyll district included Chebogue, now considered a small fishing and agricultural village. We are told that Chebogue's known European history began with the establishment of a permanent Acadian settlement in 1614. In 1758, the entire settlement was destroyed, and the Acadian inhabitants deported. This is a good place to insert a quick recap of the history of Nova Scotia that we are taught. Prior to European settlement, the Mi'kmaq people lived here, a First Nations people primarily indigenous to Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, Prince Edward Island, Newfoundland, and Quebec's Gaspé Peninsula. The Mi'kmaq language is an Eastern Algonquin language and was at one time written in hieroglyphs. Mi'kmaq hieroglyphic writing is pictured here. This is the flag of the Mi'kmaq Grand Council, the senior level of government for the Mi'kmaq Nation, and based in Canada. In 1534, Jacques Cartier started the colonization by France in the form of the creation of New France in North America. New France was ceded to Great Britain and Spain in 1763 under the terms of the Treaty of Paris, which concluded the Franco-British conflicts of the 7 Years' War in North America, also known as the French and Indian Wars. Acadia was a colony of New France, governed separately from the other Canadian colony of New France, Quebec. As a result, the Acadians and Quebecois have their own distinct French dialect, culture, and history. According to the history we are taught, French settlers started coming to this region called Acadia in the 17th and 18th centuries, primarily from Ile-de-France, which is in the Paris area, Normandy, Brittany, Poitou, and Aquitaine. So what happened to the Acadians was this. Even though the Acadians, by and large, were neutral about their allegiance during the French and Indian War, British colonial officers decided they were a threat to their effort to defeat the French, and Acadians were forcibly removed from their lands during what is called the Great Expulsion between 1755 and 1764. Approximately 11,500 Acadians were deported to various American colonies. This includes Louisiana, where they developed what became known as the Cajun culture. This is the Cajun flag. So this is a little bit of written historical background as to the peoples that were living in Nova Scotia. As far as who we are really talking about, you have to search for evidence beyond what is in writing, like what the existence of the Mi'kmaq hieroglyphs means, and what the symbols in the flags of the Mi'kmaq people and the Cajun people might mean in order to find clues to their true identity. We will also be looking at what is found in the environment here, as well as place names. For example, with more examples to come, are the Magdalen Islands, part of the province of Quebec, which are located in the Gulf of St. Lawrence, situated just north of and between the coasts of Prince Edward Island and Nova Scotia. What are we being told that we are not being told, contained in the name of the Magdalen Islands? It is like the proverbial riddle wrapped in a mystery inside an enigma. The land feature on the top left is in the Magdalen Islands. On the top right is at Hollow Rock Beach on Grand Portage Island on the Minnesota side of Lake Superior, and on the bottom is a similar one found on Flinders Island in the Bass Strait between Tasmania and Australia. This is the Bourgeot Lighthouse at Étang du Nord. There are 6 working lighthouses in the Magdalen Islands. But I digress. Back to the vicinity of Chebogue, which is north of Cape Sable Island in Yarmouth County, on the Atlantic coast. This is an aerial view taken near the Chebogue Yacht Club on the top, compared with a similar looking S-shape in the Washita River in Monroe, Louisiana. Two examples of many of the same shapes recurring in the world's river systems. Here's another picture taken near the Chebogue Yacht Club of a stone wall built with mighty big stones. While I am relatively close to the entrance of it in Chebogue, I would like to mention the Bay of Fundy between New Brunswick and Nova Scotia's North Shore. It is noteworthy because of its high tidal range. The tides in the Bay of Fundy are semi-diurnal, meaning there are 2 high tides and 2 low tides every day. The height that the water rises and falls each day is approximately equal. The result is that the bay empties out and refills every day, and it looks rather bizarre between the low tides and high tides. Back to Cape Sable Island, which has the tallest lighthouse in Nova Scotia at 101 feet or 31 meters. Cape Sable Island is connected to the mainland by the Cape Sable Causeway, otherwise known as the Barrington Causeway. Here is a ground view of the same causeway, showing various kinds of stone engineering. The Argyll district of Nova Scotia, which I mentioned at the beginning of this video, and which used to be referred to as Cape Sable, also includes Cape Negro and Cape Negro Island in the Barrington Municipal District, and also located on this circle alignment. This is a view of Cape Negro Island, with all of its stoniness. Why this name? Just because? Or is the memory of the people who originally inhabited this land retained in the name? Just like Cape Sable, one of the definitions of sable is the color black, being one of the heraldic colors. But then sable can also be claimed to mean a small furry animal valued for its fur. One of the ways they hide things from us is subtleties in language. The Thomas H. Rattle Provincial Park is next on the alignment in the vicinity of Port Joli, which is a small village approximately 120 miles or 193 kilometers southwest of Halifax. This is a comparison on the left of a land feature found at this provincial park, and on the right is a similar land feature that I highlighted in the last video at World's End in Hingham, Massachusetts. Here are some other sites at the Thomas H. Rattle Provincial Park, where there clearly are cut and shaped stones, as well as what looks like precision-cut grooves in that circled stone. The Kejimkujik National Park Seaside Adjunct is also in the same general Port Joli area. I consistently find ancient infrastructure in parks of all kinds. Here is a comparison of a beachhead at the Kejimkujik National Park Seaside on the top left, with Grama Bay in Albania on the top right, Greensand Beach on the Big Island of Hawaii on the bottom left, and Myrtos Beach on the Greek island of Kefalonia on the bottom right. And here is a double beachhead on the Port Joli coastline on the top left, compared with Casco Cove, where the former U.S. Coast Guard station was located on Attu Island, the farthest west of the Aleutian Island chain, and on the bottom, Halawa Bay on the Hawaiian island of Molokai. I have found these styles of shaped shorelines all over the world. These are just a few examples of what looks like coordinated human workmanship and not random natural occurrences. Risser's Beach Provincial Park is further up Nova Scotia's south shore from the Port Joli area, where there are more cut and shaped stones, and what is called a glacial drumlin, said to have been created by the streamlined movement of glacial ice sheets across rock debris. Yet the root word for drumlin, the Gaelic word druim, is said to mean mound or rounded hill. This is another view of the same drumlin at Risser's Beach. It has a smooth and rounded earthwork-looking appearance, not haphazard or rough. Next on the alignment is Lunenburg, a city in Nova Scotia that was said to be founded in 1773. It was said to be one of the first places where the British intended to settle Protestants in Nova Scotia to displace Micmacs and Acadians, who lived together peacefully and said to share kinship and trade. This is the Lunenburg Academy, said to have been built between 1894 and 1895. There was an enigma at St. John's Anglican Church in Lunenburg, which burned down as a result of arson on Halloween in 2001 under mysterious circumstances. When the parish set upon reconstructing the interior of the church, they sought to reproduce the star pattern of the original church that was on the chancel ceiling over the altar of the church using photographs of the original pattern. They enlisted the help of a Halifax astronomer to reflect the actual alignment of the heavenly bodies in the night sky. In so doing, they ultimately discovered, using computer software, that the star pattern on the chancel ceiling reflected the night sky in what would have been Lunenburg at the time of Jesus' birth. Lunenburg is situated in what is called a natural harbor on the western side of Mahone Bay, 62 miles or 100 kilometers southwest of the Halifax metropolitan area. Oak Island is in Mahone Bay, northeast of the town of Lunenburg. Oak Island is best known as the site of a 212-year-old treasure hunt at a place called the Money Pit, which is uniquely engineered with a layer of stones towards the top of the pit and further down a layer of logs. In addition to the Money Pit, there are other unsolved mysteries on this little island. Mahone Bay itself has over 300 islands. Peggy's Cove is on the alignment as it heads towards Halifax, on the eastern shore of St. Margaret's Bay. It is 26 miles, or 43 kilometers, southwest of downtown Halifax. Peggy's Point Lighthouse at Peggy's Cove is one of Nova Scotia's most well-known lighthouses. I actually know a lot about Nova Scotia because I spent quite a bit of time visiting here in the early 2000s. This is an acrylic painting I did on a Digby scallop shell of the lighthouse at Peggy's Cove, long before I woke up to the information I am sharing with you. Next is Halifax, the capital and largest city of Nova Scotia. It is a major economic center of Atlantic Canada. This is the Halifax Citadel, the fortified summit of Citadel Hill. The present citadel was said to have been built between 1828 and 1856. The Halifax town clock was said to have been built in 1803 on the eastern slope of Citadel Hill. There is another star fort on George's Island in Halifax Harbor. Fort Charlotte is located here, said to have been built in 1795 and abandoned in 1965. George's Island is also being called a drumlin. There was a Royal Naval Dockyard in Halifax operating between 1759 and 1905. It still serves today as a base for Canadian forces. It was the headquarters for the British Navy's North American station for 60 years, starting during the 7 Years' War between 1756 and 1763. Before ending this video, I will mention a noteworthy event that took place in Halifax on December 6, 1917. This was the date of the Halifax explosion, when a ship collision in the harbor caused a 2.9 kiloton detonation of TNT, killing at least 2,000 people and injuring 9,000, the largest man-made explosion prior to the development of nuclear weapons. It devastated the Richmond district of Halifax. I will pick up the alignment heading out of Nova Scotia across the Atlantic Ocean, where it enters Spain at the city of A Coruña, in the next video.